The Southern 500 at Darlington continues to wreak havoc on the playoff drivers year after year. This year, Kyle Larson was able to capitalize on others' problems and win and guarantee his spot into round two. Let's talk about NASCAR under the lights at Darlington. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dirty Air. I'm your host, Alex Lambert, and let's talk about NASCAR at Darlington under the lights. The first race of the 2023 NASCAR playoffs. Kyle Larson is able to get the win and guarantee his spot into the playoffs. Drivers like Denny Hamlin, Kevin Harvick had an opportunity to win this race, had massive issues coming into the closing laps. We'll break all that down, and once again, the playoff opener in the Southern 500 at Darlington wreaks havoc on the playoff drivers and causes them plenty of troubles. We'll get into that as well. You might notice that I'm not in my usual studios. I'm actually coming back from the Darlington race. I was in attendance for this year's Southern 500. It was a good time. It was a great experience, but we have a lot to get into following the first race of the playoffs. And let's go ahead and get into it. Let's talk about Kyle Larson. Kyle Larson gets his third win of the 2023 season, but most importantly, this one solidifies his spot into the 2023 second round of the playoffs. And he did a good job tonight, was continuing to creep up through the field. Didn't start up front, didn't have a great day in qualifying. We made it into the top 10, made it into the top 5. He was slowly creeping up through the field, was actually running the fastest lap times for a majority of this race, while Denny Hamlin, while Kevin Harvick were out front, while Tyler Reddick was leading the race. Kyle Larson was the one running the super fast lap times. But in the end, Denny Hamlin had massive trouble. Hamlin led 177 laps tonight, had big trouble on pit road, had to come back down, tighten up a lug nut. That took him out of contention for the win. Kevin Harvick, an unlucky break getting on pit road, went down pit road just before the caution lights came on, solidifying that he could not assume the lead. That gave the lead to Kyle Larson in the 5 car, and he was able to hold off a charging Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Brad Keselowski, William Byron in the following laps of this race. So a great job by Kyle Larson riding the wall around Darlington. I think he got into it just a couple of times, and that was really fun to watch Kyle Larson hold off guys like Tyler Reddick to get the win. So it was an impressive run by Kyle Larson, but I really do think there were a few cars that were up there going for the win. Obviously, Tyler Reddick was really fast, but he was really in the second or third position all day long. Denny Hamlin was super fast, led 177 laps, obviously qualified well, run up front the entire race until his issue. And then, of course, Kevin Harvick was flying through the field at the end of the race, passing multiple cars. But in the end, it was Kyle Larson that run the fast lap times for a majority of the race and was able to capitalize in the end and get his first crown jewel win, I believe, which was winning the Southern 500. He actually won the Coca-Cola 600 in 2021. So his second crown jewel win, the Coca-Cola 600, and now obviously the Southern 500 for Kyle Larson. But let's go ahead and go through the entire top 10 because that kind of really tells the story of the day better. You have Kyle Larson obviously getting the win. Like I said, Tyler Reddick was really a second place car all day long. It seemed like it didn't matter who was leading, whether it was Kevin Harvick. Tyler Reddick still didn't have what it takes to get by him. Tyler Reddick, I will say, I want to give props to the pit crew because they have cost Tyler Reddick a lot this season. But in this particular race, Tyler Reddick had gained a lot off the pit crew. 2311 has been working on their issues on pit road. Bubba Wallace had faster pit stops. Tyler Reddick had faster pit stops all day long. So it's exciting to see that. And we'll continue to see how that excels through the playoffs as both of those teams are in the playoffs now. Chris Buescher was able to get up there at the end of the race, finish in the top 3. Was in the top 10 for a majority of the day. There was a lot of comers and goers in this race. So Chris Buescher would be in the top 10 at one point, outside the top 10. But in the end, was able to really capitalize on the day and get a third place finish. William Byron, another one of those drivers that was kind of hanging around the top 5 all day long, was able to get into the 4th position. William Byron was never really the fastest car in this race. But once again, William Byron continues to prove that he's consistent and fast at a wide variety of racetracks, which makes him really dangerous for these playoffs. Ross Chastain, who I didn't even think was going to have any chance to have a good finish at the beginning, went a lap down earlier on in the race, was showing little to no speed all weekend long, comes up out of nowhere at the end, uses some strategy, and had the speed to finish in the top 5. So a great result for Ross Chastain in the one car after it looked to be a disastrous day starting out in the first half of this 500-mile race at Darlington. Brad Keselowski, once again, another one of those drivers that was up front all day long, kind of like his teammate Chris Buescher, was kind of in the top 10 at one point, then would fall out, ended up finishing in the 6th position. Bubba Wallace was having a bit of a rough day. He actually started out qualifying pretty well, was running in the top 10 at the end of the first stage, and actually kind of turned himself there. He got really aggressive with Joey Logano, slid up the track a little bit, and spun out. Luckily for him, there was no damage to the race car. He was able to continue and ultimately was able to come all the way back up to the field and get a solid 7th place finish. Once again, using a little bit of strategy and getting a little bit of a break with that caution coming out, Bubba Wallace was able to get a solid top 10 finish in his first race of the playoffs. Chase Elliott was able to finish in the 8th position. He was kind of there all night long. I talked about how there were some comers and goers. It seemed like every time I looked at 9th on the pylon or 8th on the pylon, it was Chase Elliott in that position. Ryan Blaney, a solid 9th place finish. Another one of those guys that was kind of running in the 10th place, top 10, outside the top 10 all day long, but never really got in the top 7, never really fell out of the top 12, Ryan Blaney. And then Eric Jones, your 2-time Southern 500 winner, was having a decent day. Actually got up, I believe it was in the top 5 at one point, but ended up finishing in the 10th position. So with that said, that is the top 10. Let's go ahead and break down the playoff grid. Here it is. Kyle Larson, obviously with his win, guarantees his spot into the 2nd round of the playoffs. William Byron, Tyler Reddick, Chris Buescher, Denny Hamlin, and even Martin Truex Jr., I would say, have a really good cushion looking at this going into the race. Martin Truex Jr., obviously, with all those bonus points he got with winning the regular season championship. I didn't really see him in this race. I think he finished 19th. He didn't show a whole lot of speed at all this weekend, which was, I was not expecting that considering how fast he was at this racetrack in the spring. But Martin Truex Jr. did not have a lot of speed this weekend. Unloaded off the truck, really slow, did not show a lot of speed, and didn't run well at all weekend long. Like I said, finishing well outside the top 15, but obviously with those bonus points, that gives him a bit of a cushion, 25 points above the cut line right now. Denny Hamlin, like I said, led 177 laps in this race, and unfortunately, come down pit road on one of his pit stops while leading, and they did not get the lug nut tight. Denny Hamlin had to come back down pit road, and ultimately that's what put him in the position that he was in the middle of the pack, to get involved in that wreck with some other drivers like Malcolm McDowell and some other drivers that were running in the middle of the pack. So it's really unfortunate for Denny Hamlin that once again the pit crews cost him a race. That seems to become a common theme for Denny Hamlin on the 11 team. And we'll have to see how that works and how that can affect him in the playoffs. I will say that it is unfortunate for Denny Hamlin, but I do kind of like his attitude. I like the way he handled everything, talking about how the team had a very fast race car. They were running very well all day long. He didn't seem upset or discouraged like I've seen Denny Hamlin in the past when things go wrong in the playoffs. So Denny Hamlin, with that attitude, could be more dangerous than we've seen in years past when Denny Hamlin's going for a championship. I just want to keep an eye on that as well. You have Kyle Busch, who ended up 20 points above the cut line, finishing in the 11th position. Kyle Busch was fast all day long. Started dead last after having to make some adjustments to the race car after practice and qualifying. Was able to come all the way up to the field. I believe the highest I saw him was in 6th place, but he just couldn't catch a break today. The caution come out after he went down pit road. That trapped him outside of the top 20 after he was a top 10 car. And it seemed like he was pitting a lot as well, just could not get on the right strategy. And once again, when you start in the back, that takes away your options to have good finishes. That takes away your options to do things the way that you want them to do, which is one of those reasons why Kyle Busch was struggling a little bit to stay in the top 10. But he had a lot of speed, I will say. I think the race car was really fast. It would have been exciting to see how far he could have got through the field if the race had played out a little bit better for him. But 20 points above the cut line right now, a decent cushion, but you have to get out of Kansas and Bristol without major issues for the next 2 weeks if he wants to make it into the next round, which I think he will make it. Brad Keselowski, once again, was able to finish in the 6th position, got a few stage points. Brad Keselowski, 18 points above, kind of the same situation as Kyle. You're in, you have a decent cushion, but you cannot blow it. You cannot have a disastrous week at Kansas. You can't have a really bad day in Bristol, and he should be able to find a way to point his way into the next round if he doesn't get a win. Ryan Blaney currently 16 points above the cut line. Ross Chastain, he gets a little tighter when you get down the list. Ross Chastain, obviously getting no stage points today, was really slow off the truck, was not fast at all at the beginning of the race, but was able to get up there and get a solid 5th place finish, but not that many playoff bonus points going into this playoffs. 13 points above right now. Logano didn't really have the best day either. Didn't see him in the top 10 much. Had a lot of trouble. Got involved with drivers like Bubba Wallace. Unfortunately, with other drivers on the racetrack today, unfortunately for him, he's only 3 points above the cut line, and it's really close from 11th on back. Christopher Bell, 1 point above the cut line after getting caught up in some trouble today. Bubba Wallace was able to get all the way through the field, but didn't really get any stage points today. Didn't have any bonus points going into this round. That's why Bubba Wallace, after finishing in the top 10, still finds himself 1 point out of the next round as it stands right now. Kevin Harvick, same type situation. Harvick didn't go into this round with many playoff bonus points from the regular season, so Kevin Harvick will end up 2 points below. Now, Kevin Harvick had a good shot to win this race and run up front, but unfortunately, as he was coming down pit road, Tyler Reddick, I guess he was going to try to come down pit road with him, downshifted in front of Ryan Newman, a lap car, and Ryan Newman spun out, and the caution came out and closed pit road right before Kevin Harvick could get onto pit road and make his pit stop. So Kevin Harvick obviously does his pit stop, then unfortunately gets penalized, has to start in last on the lead lap. So just a really unfortunate situation for Kevin Harvick. Ricky Stenhouse Jr., it was a really bad day all day long. He started out in the middle of the pack, unfortunately got a penalty early on in the race, was able to come back up. I saw him running in the top for a little while, in the top 20, but just not the best day for Ricky Stenhouse. He's 4 points below the cut line as it stands right now. And then Michael McDowell having the worst day, finishing the worst out of all the playoff drivers, getting involved in that wreck with Denny Hamlin and himself. A couple of the cars were scattering. It looked like Kyle Busch might have been involved in that, at least with the start of it, and that was really unfortunate for Michael McDowell, definitely hurting his playoff chances. 19 points below in the first round is not where you want to be. It'll be interesting to see how Michael McDowell recovers from that. So one other storyline, it definitely is going to be one of the other wrecks that we had, which was Alex Bowman and Daniel Suarez. You see here Alex Bowman kind of blocking Daniel Suarez a little bit there. Suarez obviously eventually getting turned or turning Alex Bowman into the outside wall. Pretty big accident there. Harrison Burton ends up getting caught up in the wreck. Scary accident. Glad everybody was okay after that wreck on the racetrack going into turn one. But that was unfortunate. I heard a few comments from Daniel Suarez kind of saying that was a dumb move, is what Daniel Suarez said. And then Alex Bowman kind of responded with, you know, we're always having trouble on the racetrack with each other. Me and the 99 car could never really get along on the racetrack, it seems. That was interesting. I wanted to point that out. Obviously not too big playoff implications with those three drivers involved in the wreck, but it's definitely important to kind of follow that as well, especially with drivers that I would consider top drivers, Daniel Suarez and Alex Bowman. So it'll be interesting to see how that sort of rivalry that's starting to form continues to move on into the next 9 races this season and moving forward. So that's it. That's really all there is to talk about following NASCAR Darlington. We have 2 more races left in this round of the playoffs, Kansas next week, and then obviously the Bristol night race that following Saturday. So it should be interesting. Like and subscribe if you like the video, and of course, about Kyle Busch just not being able to catch a break today. Let's get rowdy.